Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days. For today's second video, so it can take us to around 23rd of February, and we can extend out beyond that with the extended GFS. And that's going to take us to the first day of March, actually. That's as far as the GFS is running at the moment. 384 hours gets us to the first day of meteorological spring. 2019. Now, there is going to be a taste of spring in the air over the next few days. So as we always say, the weather doesn't stick to these defined criteria. Meteorological winter is the first day of December to the final day of February, and meteorological spring is the first day of March to the final day of May. But of course, the weather doesn't know that we've got these defined criteria that we have that we've set ourselves, so you can get spring conditions well before the start of March, and of course you can get wintry conditions well into March and even into April. So we've got a little bit of that going on this week, very warm temperatures, and we discussed this in the 5-day forecast, which has been released earlier on today. Temperatures could well be up to mid-teens Celsius in the next couple of days. We're just beginning to fall back a little bit, but still mild over weekend and into start of next week. And we'll pick up the storyline beyond that for the rest of the next week to 10 days. For today's second video update, we're going to start off with the stratosphere. I haven't talked about this for a little while, so this is how the temperatures are currently looking at 10 HPA over the North Pole from the JMA. So 10 HPA is one of the top levels of the atmosphere in the stratosphere, of course. The black line shows how temperatures have been performing at 10 HPA through this season, going back to the beginning of September. The grey line is kind of like the trend line. So the big story with this winter is that we have the sudden stratospheric warming very early in the winter, where the black line shot up to there. It rose something like 60 degrees Celsius in around 5 days, and that was a very dramatic sudden stratospheric warming that occurred at the end of December, around Christmas through to New Year. And since then, we've really been waiting to get a tropospheric response to that sudden stratospheric warming. I think actually we probably did get a tropospheric response to it in the second half of January. So from the middle of January to the end of January, I think that was the tropospheric response. It turned colder. There was a clear drop in temperature that occurred through that second half of January compared to what had been going on in like the 5 or 6 weeks before that, from the 1st of December. And of course, we dropped the polar vortex down into North America as well. So for this particular sudden stratospheric warming, I think the response was more dramatic on the other side of the Atlantic anyway. But we did have a partial response to the sudden stratospheric warming, but not the kind of response that we've had over the past few years when we've had sudden stratospheric warming. So thinking of the SSW that occurred last winter, it was actually happening around this time last year, around the 10th to the 12th, 13th of February. That's when last winter's sudden stratospheric warming happened. And there was a very rapid response to that, and we got the beast from the east. So there was a very cold outbreak that set up just a couple of weeks after that sudden stratospheric warming. Then going even further back to 2013, we had that big sudden stratospheric warming in early January, just after the New Year in 2013. And of course, that led us into a colder and colder weather pattern through the rest of that winter, which culminated in a very extremely blocked March, and the coldest March since around 1883 in some parts of the country, or 1962 in other areas. So we have had these sun stratospheric warmings over the past few winters, and the response has tended to be very dramatic. The response to this one wasn't anywhere near as dramatic, but I think we did get a partial response within the troposphere. But probably not as much of a response as you might have thought, given that we did have a very dramatic increase in temperature in the stratosphere at 10 HPA at the end of December. We also managed to reverse the zonal winds at both 10 and 30 HPA So the sun stratospheric warming did pretty much everything that you want out of a sun stratospheric warming. The only thing that was missing was kind of like the real tropospheric response from a northern blocking point of view. Since that sun stratospheric warming, the temperatures have been going down at 10 HPA, and we've actually had a very cold stratospheric temperature at 10 HPA since we started February. That's where we are right now. Really cold, the coldest temperatures that we've had all winter at 10 HPA, and well below average. At this point of the year, the grey line shows us that we should actually be warming the temperature up at 10 HPA. Right now. So this very cold stratospheric temperature, almost down to around minus 80. And bear in mind, when we have a sun stratospheric warming, the temperature was very close to minus 10. So really dramatic developments, really, with this winter in terms of the temperature at 10 HPA. It looks like we've bottomed out now, I think. I don't think we'll get as cold as where it has been in the past few days. That black line's just ticking up a little bit, but still way below average, still a lot colder than average. I expect that's going to gradually start to get back closer to average through the remainder of the winter. If we go a bit further down to 30 HPA, this is how things are looking, 30 HPA, so nowhere near as cold there, and we are actually very close to average. Again, that shows the sun stratospheric warming occurring around the turn of the year. That's where we are right now. So we're very close to average with the temperature at 30 HPA, which is a little bit closer to the troposphere, so it's a little bit lower down compared to 10 HPA. So it really is right at the very top of the stratosphere where things are very, very cold at the moment. That's probably had an impact in powering up the polar vortex. It is probably one of the things that explains why we have seen the Arctic Oscillation trend into very positive territory over the past week or two. This is how the temperatures are being forecast to develop at 10 HPA over the North Pole for the next couple of weeks. This is from the GFS model at meteoshield.fr. So the blue and purple colours, those are the cold temperatures at 10 HPA. The coldest temperatures around minus 80, as we've already seen. If we run through, we'll see that we keep those blue colours churning away over the North Pole. So we keep these very cold temperatures, much colder than average temperatures going over the North Pole at 10 HPA right way through to the 21st of February. We can go a little bit beyond that is extended range. And yeah, we keep those cold temperatures there over the North Pole going right way through to the start of March. So even at the start of March, we'll still probably be seeing temperatures on this chart. Let's just go back to 10 HPA. Even on the first day of March, we will probably still be seeing temperatures at 10 HPA somewhere around here, somewhere between minus 70 and minus 80 degrees. And bearing in mind, we should be up there closer to minus 50 around the start of March. So it's going to carry on with this very cold temperature at 10 HPA through to the beginning of March, and that will probably keep the Arctic Oscillation more towards the positive side and keep the polar vortex a little bit powered up, I would have thought, as we get through to the start of March. No sign of any sun stratospheric warmings up to beginning of March. We've got these green and sometimes yellow colours around the edges within the latitudes, but not penetrating into the North Pole. Eventually we will destroy the polar vortex, of course. The polar vortex always goes as we get through to the summer, at least briefly. It normally happens either in March or April. So there'll be a sun stratospheric warming again that will mark the end of the polar vortex for this season. But when it's going to happen, we won't know. As I say, it's normally in March or April. But maybe this year it'll be delayed. It looks so. Certainly at the beginning of March, you'll keep very cold temperatures going out to 10 HPA over North Pole. This is a forecast for the zonal winds at 10 HPA. So when these when the temperature is cold at 10 HPA, you will normally power up the zonal winds. So that's, as I say, it's probably responsible for powering up the polar vortex and shifting the Arctic Oscillation into more positive territory. We discussed that in yesterday's video. As you can see, that actually where the zonal winds are right now, this is from weatheriscool.com, where the zonal winds are right now, it's about average actually. So the zonal winds are actually weaker than you would probably expect given how cold the temperature is at 10 HPA. But the zonal winds are going to be powering up over the next week or two. So these green lines are from the GFS ensembles, and they're showing that the zonal winds are going to power up to around there in around a week's time. And then in week 2, just lowering a little bit, but still stronger zonal winds than average. So it's taken a little while for the zonal winds to power up with that cold temperature in the stratosphere at 10 HPA, but it's on the way. It's imminent that we're going to see the zonal winds going quite a lot stronger than average. Average, of course, on this chart is indicated by this black line just here. But red dash line is interesting. That's last year's stratospheric zonal winds. You'll see, but it was at this point last year, as I said, but when we was getting the sudden stratospheric warming, that we saw the collapse of the zonal winds. That's where we was this time last year with that sudden stratospheric warming that led to the beast from the east, whereas this is where the zonal winds are right now. So much stronger with the zonal winds this February compared to last year. The pink and blue, the 3 pink and 1 blue line, quite interesting. That is the forecast from the CFS V2 before CFS V2 runs that occur daily. And you'll see they are keeping the zonal winds pretty strong now through into March. So this is March just here. Zonal winds pretty strong then. But they are all forecasting a collapse in the zonal winds sometime around the end of March or the start of April. So they're differing about when they're doing it. This pink one does it quite early just here and has a collapse in the zonal winds occurring from sort of late March into early April. The other 3 are doing it a little bit later, and it's happening more through the early and middle part of April. That's what I was talking about, but eventually we will see the destruction of the polar vortex. It happens every spring and into summer that you get the destruction of the polar vortex, or pretty much the destruction of the polar vortex. I mean, I'm not sure it totally goes away over the very top of the North Pole, but it basically gets destroyed for the summer, and then as it starts turning colder again in the North Pole, usually in August, you start to find the polar vortex beginning to reform once again. So that's on the way, but it probably isn't going to happen until we get into April. And for the time being, it looks like we're going to keep the temperature very cold at 10 HPA and have pretty strong zonal winds as well. So these are how the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles are looking for the next 2 weeks. Looking at Bognor Regis today down on the south coast. And this is another suggested location for this section of the video. We've got the list of the places that you said you wanted to see. So this is another one on the list. We're going through the list now. So start sort of telling me where you'd like to see next in the next few days, and we'll add those locations to the list. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Bognor Regis, and it's very mild, of course, at the moment. We're way above average. This is where we are right now. Going to stay very mild over the next few days. Dropping temperature taking place at the end of the weekend into the start of next week, but only for a day or two, and then the temperatures are lifting up again. It looks like we go through a very mild phase once again through the final days of February. Yet again, we see 1 or 2 cold outliers. So we've got this gold member just here. That's a pretty cold outlier sometime around the 25th or 26th of February. More just here, right at the very end of the ensemble graph. Those ones are pretty cold as well, sometime around the last day of February into the beginning of March. But again, they're outliers, they're not supported. The majority of these GFS ensemble members are very mild at the moment, a little bit cooler at the end of weekend, start of next week, and then very mild through to month's end. As far as precipitation is concerned, loads of dry weather through the rest of this week into weekend, a little bit more unsettled next week, but not overly so, just a little bit more unsettled over the end of the weekend and into the start of next week, but probably not lasting all that long. Temperature anomalies are looking like this for the week ahead. So this is from the 13th to the 21st of February. A lot milder than average, much above average temperature anomalies, not just of UK and Ireland, but for most parts of Europe as well. And precipitation anomalies coming out for the 13th, 21st of February, generally drier than average. So a really mild and dry week coming up. This is how the operational GFS run is looking for Saturday. This is all covered by the 5-day forecast, of course. Mainly dry and warm in the south and east on Saturday. A little bit more unsettled in the north and west. And then on Sunday, we bring a band of rain across the country. It lowers the temperature. That's when this temperature is dropping at Bognor Regis, and it will be the case at all parts of the country. The temperature drops a little bit from Sunday to Monday, but still generally a little bit milder than average. There'll be a band of rain moving across the country on Sunday as well, as a diminishing feature though. So Monday we're into sunshine and showers, and possibly quite an unsettled day on Tuesday too. But beyond that, we start to raise the heights to the south-southeast again. So through next week, it's a case of watching high pressure beginning to take over pattern once again. So this is how we look at the end of next week. This is Friday 22nd of February. High pressure to our south and east, low pressure out to the north and west. It means there could be some showery rain at times in the north and west. Southern and east areas likely to be dry. Very mild, but winds are pumping up from the southwest. It's a long fetch southwesterly with the air originating from down here, somewhere down towards the Azores. That'll be pumping very mild air up across the country through the second half of next week. That's how things look at day 10, which is Saturday the 23rd of February. High pressure again is to our south. Low pressure is out to the north and to the west too. And then beyond that, we keep this sort of duel going between high pressure to the south and the east and low pressure out to the northwest. So all the time, northern and western parts of the country will be just that bit more unsettled with showers or longer spells of rain. The south and the east will always get the driest weather. Temperatures all the time are going to be mild or very mild as the winds are pumping up from the southwest. So this could finish up a very mild February, actually. The expectation was February would be the coldest month of the winter when most of the winter forecasts were released. The expectation in most of those winter forecasts were that February would likely be the coldest month of the winter, but not turning out like that at all. And it looks like this could end up as a very mild February. I don't think we'll be threatening records because we had that very cold start. Remember, the first day of February was the coldest first day of February since 2009. So it's coldest 1st of February for 10 years. So that will limit the chance of getting an exceptionally mild month. But nevertheless, this is potentially going to turn into a very mild February. I wouldn't be at all surprised if it has a CET above 6 degrees by the time we get through to month's end, if these charts continue to verify. As far as we can go with the GFS run is to the 1st of March, Friday the 1st of March, looking a little bit cooler, winds gone westerly, but it's all still piling in from off the Atlantic and possibly turning a bit more unsettled even for southern and eastern parts of the country. That's the GFS operational run, this GFS parallel. So again, Saturday bringing up those very mild winds from the southwest, a little bit more unsettled on Sunday into showery conditions early next week, but not taking very long at all to get back into high pressure. So by the time you get through the second half next week, actually high pressure is back in control, more so on the parallel run compared to the operational GFS run. The parallel has high pressure well and truly back in control through the second half next week, and it'll be pretty warm as well as the winds are pushing back up from the south once more. That's how things are looking at day 10 under a ridge of high pressure through most parts of the country. Any rain restricted to the far west of Ireland and western Scotland. Temperatures will be very mild with that too, certainly into below teens Celsius. And then going to extended range with a parallel GFS run, and we just keep these warm winds wafting up from the southwest. So again, this is a very mild end to February. Far as we can go with the parallel GFS run is to the first day of March, and by then it's just beginning to turn a little bit more unsettled, particularly for northern and western parts of the country. More high pressure influences from the parallel GFS compared to the operational. And then finally for these charts, we've got the GFS. Let me see how the GFS, the ECM I should say, this is how the ECM is looking for Saturday. Again, lots of dry weather for southern and eastern parts of the country, more unsettled in the north and west with the ECM WF into the second half of the weekend, just going a bit more unsettled. A band of rain moving across the country from sunny to muddy, but it will be weakening as it pushes across the country. And then very quickly, look at this, we're back into high pressure. So the ECM is agreeing with the parallel GFS run that next week we get back to high pressure very, very quickly. By Wednesday, we've got this ridge building back up across the country, and that keeps dry and pretty mild weather going into the second half next week. That high pressure just getting more intense, actually, as we run up to day 10. That's how things look at day 10, which is Saturday the 23rd of February. Basically the same sort of scenario as we've got at the moment. The high pressure centred over Germany, low pressure is out to west of Ireland, and we're bringing up these very warm southerly winds, very warm for the time of year, which could well be lifting temperatures again back into the mid-teens Celsius. So it really does look as though we're going to get back to high pressure very quickly next week. I think the GFS operational run, which is more unsettled, particularly for the northwest next week, is quite isolated, and most of the model output is suggesting high pressure comes back very quickly through the course of the middle and second half of next week. And then finally, we'll have a look at CFS-V2. So I want to go to there. And these are 500 millibar heights. They're broken down into week periods. The first week period will take us from the 13th to the 19th of February. The coming week has above average heights centred over into the east of the UK, with below average heights in the Atlantic. That pulls the wind up from that very mild southerly southwesterly direction. So a lot of dry weather and really mild conditions to come in the week ahead. We go through to week 2, which is the 20th, 26th of February, still with that large ridge sitting over to the east of the country. Low pressure is out in the middle of the Atlantic. Winds, therefore, are going to be very mild again, pushing up from a southerly type direction. So very mild into February with that. And then go through to week 3, which is the 27th of February through to the 5th of March. And let me just see the high pressure going a little bit further north. The centre is kind of like somewhere between Scotland and Norway. So just a slight change in wind direction, possibly something a little bit colder, more of an east-southeasterly perhaps, as opposed to the very mild southerly to south-westerly that we see through the final couple of weeks of February. So getting to the beginning of March, perhaps something a little bit cooler, but still mainly dry and probably still quite mild. And then all change in week 4. This is the 6th to the 12th of February. Northern blocking appears being just when we don't really want it, into March, into spring. And northern blocking begins to set up between Greenland and Norway. Low pressure starts to run underneath it. The jet stream's going down there. So becoming a lot colder and a lot more unsettled with that as we're going in towards the second week of March. Temperature anomalies in the week ahead from the 13th to the 19th of February, much milder than average. A warm week coming up, and that goes on into week 2 as well, the 20th, 26th of February, again a lot milder than average. Week 3 is also another mild week, not quite as mild, just that subtle change in wind direction from like southerlies to more southeasterly type direction, but still above average with the temperature anomaly then. And then we get through to week 4, and this is the 6th to the 12th of March, and we go a little bit colder than average and ever so slightly below average, and central parts of Europe are going below average as well, just when, as I say, we don't really want that to happen. And the precipitation anomaly, very dry in the week ahead from the 13th to the 19th of February. A little bit more unsettled as we go through to week 2. Closer to average with precipitation then, but I would think still pretty much on the dry side, really. And week 3 is also looking quite dry, to be honest. It's 27th of February to the 5th of March. Week 4 does look more unsettled, particularly to the south and west of the country. It's a long way off, so the CFS has been very poor this season, along with all of the other long-range model output. So don't be too concerned about what it's showing for week 4. But today it is showing that we get a bit further into March and it becomes a lot colder and a lot more unsettled. Last thing I'm going to say before we go is a big thank you to all of the subscribers for the Gazworthies YouTube channel, because we have reached our latest target of 5,000 subscribers. We currently have 5,011 subscribers for the Gazworthies YouTube channel, and over 3 million, of course, video views. We launched this particular channel, the Gazworthies channel, in, I think it was March 2014. That's when we changed over from the original YouTube channel to this more professional YouTube channel. And as I say, we're up to 5,000 subscribers now with over 3 million video views. I suppose the next target is 10,000 subscribers, and we'll just have to wait and see how long it takes us to get to 10,000 subscribers for the YouTube channel. But a big thank you to all of you for subscribing. Big thank you to all of you for liking the videos as well. So subscribe and like, and we'll see how long it takes us to get to 10,000 subscribers. Hopefully it won't be too long. Right, so that's it for your videos for today. Tomorrow we'll be back with another week to 10-day look ahead as well. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.